Hey, so I wanted to share this idea that I had that what narcs really want is to be an infant with an attentive mother. Because if that were the case, it's all about them, their needs, and the mother does whatever the infant wants. There's no boundaries. The infant doesn't have to think about other people's feelings. They are the only thing in their world. They receive unconditional attention and other people meeting their needs. They're not responsible for their own behavior, and there's no punishment or consequences for vomiting or screaming or whatever the infant does. There's unconditional acceptance and positive regard. They are in control and they are powerful because their needs are all that matter. And I think it's during this phase of development that they have their attachment trauma and they lack receiving these things in infancy, and this is what made them a narc in the first place. So I think they're trying to achieve this state, basically, that they never received. But obviously they cannot have this with a healthy adult, which is why they do the love bombing thing and all the manipulation stuff, because no normal adult person would have a relationship like this with another adult knowingly, which is why they have to do all their manipulation. But what's really disturbing about all of this is that the closest they get, I think, to achieving this infant status with an attentive mother is actually when they have their own children, because the child that they have has no boundaries, because that's just how children are when they're born. And then the narcissist will actually prevent these boundaries from being formed. And the infant will regard the narcissistic parent with unconditional attention and positive regard. Children are very forgiving and loving. And because the child is powerless, the narc can abuse the child and the child will still love them, i.e. there are no consequences for their abusive behavior because the child cannot do anything. And rather than caring about the child's feelings, they make the child care about their feelings, which is called enmeshment or role reversal, which is really common. And in this relationship with their child, the narc has 100% control and power. So the narc is basically turning their child into the mother that they always wanted but that they never got. And we also hear of son husbands where the mother will turn their son into like the husband that they want. They're exploiting the vulnerability of the child to try to create this relationship with an attentive mother that they never got to have and that they never will have, because they will never be an infant ever again. And obviously those of us raised by a narc have the same sort of trauma of insecure attachment, but for some reason we don't end up as narcs. But I don't know, this whole idea was just like really intriguing to me, that I'd heard of that theory that they're like stuck in infancy, but for some reason it just like really clicked. I was like, oh, they're like trying to recreate that relationship with the mother that they never got, but then obviously they can't have it, so this is why they end up having to like rope people in with a love bombing, and then they have to try to have this relationship, but then obviously the other adult is like not gonna want to do it, so then they end up having to discard people and then like do it all over again. And the closest thing they actually get to recreating that relationship is by abusing their children and manipulating their children into fulfilling that role, which is like the most disturbing thing. Like as a child that this happened to, like it's really awful. But yeah, that doesn't excuse their behavior in any way. It just kind of made it like make sense in a way. I don't know. If we can just like stop narcissists from being created in this fashion, it like won't keep getting propagated, because maybe narcs exist outside of being created, but I guess I'm talking about the situation where they are created through this trauma. There would be like no more narcissists. If the only narcissists that exist are the ones that are created this way, then if we stopped childhood abuse, there just like wouldn't be any narcissists, and loving mothers would provide love for their children, and then their children would grow up to be loving people and then love their children. And like, we don't need to have this cycle of like narcissists creating more narcissists with like random children somehow escaping the narcissistic pattern. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of interesting. Their trauma is like really, really, really early in that stage when they're supposed to have an attentive mother doing everything for them, and they don't perceive other people's needs, and the baby can just do whatever they want with like no consequences. And that's like kind of the frame of mind that they're in, and they basically think that everyone should like be their attentive mother to meet this developmental stage that was like never developed like properly. So I'm curious in your thoughts, and thanks for watching.